What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, guys. For those of you that are new here, my name's Tim, and I'm a NPC Classic Physique competitor. So we got an awesome video to talk about today, guys. We're going to be talking about questions you need to be asking before you're hiring a bodybuilding coach. So this video is super relevant to me because I just hired a brand new coach last week. And these are questions that I asked during the interview process when I was interviewing new coaches to see, who I wanted to guide me in an off season going into a contest prep. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So question number one that I asked them to describe their favorite dieting slash training style and how they would be dieting and slash training me as a client. So the real answer to this question, guys, it should depend on your needs as a client, your individual needs as a client. Now, it's okay for coaches to have favorites. They typically program high volume, or their nutrition plans are typically high carb. Maybe they find that best to work for most clients, but ultimately your body is individual. You should not be having cookie cutter one size fits all approaches when it comes to either diet or nutrition. Everything should be tailored specifically to your needs. You don't want a coach that continuously programs in, um, I don't know, say a lat pull down or something like that when your back is your best body part and it doesn't need to come up, but you have small legs. Um, Things like that. Or you have a nagging injury and you're like, hey, I can't do skull crushers, it grenades my elbows. And they constantly program in, skull crushers just because that's the one that works for everybody. That's not the right way to approach that, guys. Everything needs to be needs to be tailored to you, your needs as a client, your injuries, your preferences, things like that. So keep that in mind. No one size fits alls to either training nor nutrition. If you hear things like that, if your potential coach says, this is the way I do things, this is the way they have to be done, run like hell, guys. There is better ways to do things than one size fits all. So they need to take your needs as a client into consideration. Now, there are some instances, like at the end of a contest prep, or during contest prep, or really any time that, well, sometimes things just have to be done a certain way. Certain attention to detail has to be met, and certain changes have to be made in order to reach the goal that you're setting yourself up for. So that's a little bit different, but just all the way around, everything should be tailored to you and your needs as a client. So, question number two that I would ask is, what can you expect in means of communication? Now, that's very broad, but it's kind of meant to be. So, when you're thinking about that question, first things first is you need to ask these guys how they want to be communicated with, whether that be WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, email, text, call, whatever it is. You need to have clear-cut boundaries in what you can expect. So if you have a question or something like that, can I shoot you a text? Can I shoot you an email? Can I shoot you a WhatsApp? How are you going to be checking in? Things like that. How does all that work? And what can you expect as far as response times from those texts, from those phone calls? Well, not really the phone calls, but what can you expect when it comes to text, check-in times, things like that? Because that's going to become super relevant and super important, especially during peak week. Well, if you're a contest prep client, the last thing you want to do is check in with your coach, say on Monday. That's what my check-in day is. And you don't want to hear if you hear back from them on Wednesday and you're 2 weeks out from a show, that is valuable time that you guys are missing out on. You want to make sure that they're getting back to you in a timely manner. A good rule of thumb, I would say maximum 24 hours response time. That should be a gold standard, but unfortunately in the coaching industry, it is not. There's a lot of coaches out there that, you'll send a check-in, you might not hear back from them for a week. And that is honestly terrible. So story time real quick. My last coach, honestly, one of the reasons I fired him was a lack of communication. And honestly, attention to detail. He didn't get me in shape for my last show, but communication is super important, especially closer you get to a show. If you're wondering, if you're going to hear back from your coach in time to make needed changes, or especially if you feel like there's a change that needs to be made, um, it's a terrible spot to be in if you're sitting there worrying, waiting if you're going to hear back. So definitely get clear cut boundaries on what you can expect as far as communication goes. That way you can decide to work with them or not. If they're being dishonest in that, you go, hey, you're not holding up your end of the bargain. I'm going to go my separate ways. No harm, no foul. So question number three that I would ask is what is the check-in, the check-in process like? And what is expected of you as a client during those check-ins? So first things first, you're going to need to ask, and they should tell you this, but I guess some coaches are retarded. Anyway, I know that's not politically correct, but deal with it. Um, so what day is your check-in supposed to be on? What time do you need to have your check-in in by? And there's going to be some responsibility on you as a client in this process too. Um, if they tell you check-in days are Monday, you have to have your check-ins in by 12 o'clock, and you're constantly late on your check-ins. You can't expect them to reply back to you in a timely manner. They have other clients, they have other lives, etc. But you need to ask, what's expected of you in these check-ins. Do you need to be providing certain biofeedback, certain health markers like blood pressure, blood glucose levels? Do you need to be providing, adherence to your plan, whether it be cardio, macros, or training? Do you need to be providing any kind of like documentation, like they give you a sheet to fill out, daily, weekly, whatever. You need to be asking all these questions. That way you can decide, okay, maybe this is too much detail for me. Maybe this isn't enough detail for me. And you can decide whether you want to work with that coach or not. That's another good one that you need to think about. But again, you need to take responsibility as a client here and make sure you're asking these questions and getting clear cut boundaries on what you can expect. Because if you don't do your homework, you can't be mad at anyone but yourself, because they're going to go, well, you didn't ask me. That's just the way that I do things in this sense. And really, that's on you as a client to ask these questions, or as a potential client in this case to ask these questions. So next one, question number 3 or 4. I'll be honest, I don't know at this point. Um, do they offer PED protocols in contest prep and in the off season? And what do those protocols typically look like? Hopefully, they're going to have you pull blood work, every 3 to 4 months, year round, just to make sure you're in a good spot health, with health and things like that. And if they're providing protocols, what do those protocols look like? Are they terrible approaches? Are they completely just off the rails as far as crazy dosages and stuff like that goes? Because you don't want to be, a fairly new competitor, maybe ran 1 or 2 cycles, and your brand new coach goes, okay, here's your contest prep cycle, and you are 16 weeks out, and you're running, I don't know, let's just very hypothetical numbers. Please don't repeat this cycle, guys. A gram of test, 700-800 Mastron, 500-600 Tren, Winstrol in there, Anadrol, something crazy, or Clen 16 weeks out, things like that. Guys, you want to run from coaches that are just trying to throw drugs at the problem. Um, your PED protocol should be the least effective dose, and that should be honestly all the way around. Off season and contest prep. Use just enough drugs to get the result that you want ultimately at the end of the day. You don't want a coach just going to throw a bunch of drugs at you and try to fix the problem. Typically your blood work's going to be a mess. Your health is going to be in a bad spot. It's just not a good way all the way around for long-term health and longevity in the sport. So another question you need to ask, guys, is if their training/nutrition plans are specific to you as a client. You want to make sure that everything is tailored 100% to you, no cookie cutter plans. When they're writing out your training plans, you want to, if you have injuries, you want to make sure that they're working around those injuries for you. Or if you're a client that typically responds better to a higher carb approach, lower fat, if your coach has a one size fits all plan, it has a higher fat, lower carb, moderate protein approach, that's obviously not going to work well for you. And especially if you're communicating that going in, they should not be programming and setting up your nutrition in that manner. So like I said, guys, the moral of the story is everything should be specific to you when you're hiring a coach. So keep all that stuff in mind as you're interviewing these coaches, and make sure you're jumping on a phone call or a Zoom call or something like that with these guys before you're just deciding to hire somebody off Instagram or one of these big name coaches. Because honestly, guys, this is a unregulated industry, and unfortunately, not everyone has good intentions. So make sure you're asking questions. Make sure you're doing your homework as a client. Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do as a client, and try to find a coach that fits your needs the best. So anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And you guys have a good night. Peace.